So then I was determined to do musical theater. At that time, too, I had a heart problem. So at that point, I'll never forget this. Shout out to Miss Wong at Covina High School. We were doing hurdles, and I was doing hurdles one day, and then my heart wouldn't slow down. So it was like I was still running for like 10 minutes after, and they found out after a long time that I had a heart problem. So I had to have heart surgery in high school. I had two by my senior year.
Wow.
And then I was like, well, you know, it's kind of a wake-up call when your heart just suddenly shoots up to my pulse was at 289 and then would shoot down to 30 within seconds. So I would almost pass out, or I would pass out. So after the surgeries, it was fine, but it puts things into perspective. So my life was suddenly like, I should pursue whatever I want, because that was really scary and I have time, so I should do what I like. So I went into musical theater. I started training a lot and got to tour the U.S., or not so much the U.S. I got to tour New York and a couple other cities, and then went to China and the Philippines and sang over there, and went to Europe and sang classical music over there. And then after that, I started working, and I'd lost a lot of family members my last year of college doing musical theater. And so I didn't have the best coping strategy. And so I got really thin, and I think I weighed like 92 pounds at that point, because I was struggling with a lot of family members going through different illnesses. So at that time, I got into a really bad car accident on my way to Disneyland, and I got sandwiched between two trucks on the freeway. And I ended up in the hospital for 3 days, had to relearn how to walk because I was in pain. And I remember this doctor looked at me when I went in, and he said, "You have chronic regional pain syndrome." And it was so rare. And he said, "Well, that's usually people that were in the military get this. So I don't understand how you got it, but you have it." And then he said, "But you're really young." So it kind of led to, should we get a second opinion on this? Especially if it's so rare, you want to make sure that everything is accurate. So I went and saw a couple of doctors, and then they found a cyst inside my knee, and they said, "Well, that's the cause of the issue. That's why your leg's in so much pain." And it was just constant pain, constant burning. It would kind of give out a little bit, and I could feel it, but I was still at the point where I was walking just with a little limp. And then they made me go into testing and stuff like that. I ended up going into a bunch of different types of, not treatment, but things in the U.S., or at least in California, that are deemed necessary to do before anything else. So I tried a lot of those things, and then after a while, it didn't get better. And so they were still fighting a diagnosis. And then finally, another doctor at UCLA, where I was going to get treated, said, "No, you do have chronic regional pain syndrome."
Wow. I had never heard of that before. And before I started speaking to you, how rare is it?
I believe it's like 3% of the population has it.
And you said diagnosis. So is it diagnosed like through blood, or how is it diagnosed?
No, it's diagnosed. So it depends on who you ask. That's kind of the consensus that I've found so far. So a lot of the times it's symptom-based, and it's self-reporting. So they'll ask you what it feels like if it's burning. You literally feel like you're in a jacuzzi, but you're burning inside. And then it'll feel like sometimes like your bones are breaking. It's constant pain. And then your affected body parts, usually legs or arms, some people have it in other spots, but you end up feeling like it's red and swollen and double the size, and air will hurt. Anything can hurt.
Wow. So were you just tolerating this just because you had this background of, you know, I can endure and you know, overcome, or what was going on there?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix. I think it's one of those things where when you have to, you just do it. And the crazy part, I think, though, is that when you get diagnosed, they sit you down when you get your official diagnosis, and they say, "Look, you have a 50-50 shot at this. So we need you to get a therapist, we need you to get a psychiatrist, and you need to do something to cope." And it's scary in that moment, because you really don't know what you're in for. You're just in constant pain, and you're trying to find some sort of outlet. So for me, it was a lot of, I'm glad that it was validated, that it was just the pain that was making everything else worse. But it was also so frightening to know that this is a reality. It's very odd in that moment.
A 50-50 shot at what?
At living.
And for what period of time?
So it really depends. There's some people that have had this for 20, 30 years, and they're just day by day. I mean, they're warriors. The fact that they can do that day by day is insane to me, and I'm so proud of them.
They're experiencing what you described every day?
Every single day. Yeah,
Wow.
This disease doesn't let up. You have it every day of your life. You wake up in pain. You fall asleep if you can sleep in pain. A lot of the times you have a hard time sleeping. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just you have to just stick it out. You have to do it. You have to try and live a normal life. Because if not, then you will be one of the 50%. And that there's no shame in that. And I understand it. And it's odd when I think there's a stigma to it of if you can't survive this, you failed. But I don't think that's the case. I feel like it's something we need to destigmatize, especially with an illness like this. It's no one's fault. You know, it happens. And sometimes if someone has to cope and they feel like that's their only out, then, I mean, I get it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, well, there must be people out there who are just dealing with pain and, you know, without somebody acknowledging or affirming what they're going through, they're just going to keep living through it.
Yeah.
As if it's normal.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough that I found a group on Facebook, a support group, and it ended up helping me a lot. And there are a lot of people in there that are just saying, hey, I have a bad day today. They call it spoons. So you have a certain amount of spoons that you have each day, and you can only use them for certain things. Like, I have enough spoons to eat today by myself without getting sick, or I have enough spoons today to walk around my house without a cane, or I have a spoon today that's going to allow me to read and take a shower, and that's good enough. And I think that's a lot of it, is just you have to understand what your body's telling you, and then when you hit that point, enough is okay.
So you went to UCLA for a second opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and they affirmed that this is what you have.
Yeah.
And what were you doing then? Were you seeking to manage it? Were you seeking a third opinion? Like, where did your journey take you after that?
Yeah, I was seeking to manage it and try and mitigate any of the pain, at least as much as I could, because when you're at that point, I was probably at a 7 or 8 out of 10 every day. So I just wanted to go down like one level if possible, or anything would be great. So luckily I had a really good doctor, and I was blessed in that aspect where he was very affirming of everything, but also very helpful in solutions and helping me decide what the best outlook was or what the best choice was for me. But I also had to keep myself really busy at that point too to fight it, because if I didn't want to sit in it too long. So when I first got diagnosed, I was taking 26 units in college and putting out an album. So I had no time to think. It was just a way to avoid pain mentally as much as I could. And then once I got into UCLA and everything, it was I have to work 40 hours a week or more just because I need to keep myself busy, and medical bills. But mainly, the more that I can keep my mind off it, the better.
Wow. So what did they do to help manage your pain?
So you get these spinal, not blocks, but they're like epidurals. So they'll put them in your spine, and then the first doctor I went to, he did, I think it was like 4 over the span of a month.
You say that so casually, like it's like no big deal. They just put this in your spine, and I'm like, no, what?
Yeah.
Doesn't that hurt?
I was knocked out for most of them, so I was really lucky. I didn't feel anything.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. You know what's funny is that so many people say that. They're like, you say these things so casually, and they're so scary to think about.
Yeah.
But again, when you're in that much pain, you're just, I don't want to look at the needle, just do it.
Okay.
Like 5 minutes of no pain would be great right now. So, but
yeah, sure.
But I was trying to avoid doing too many, or try to avoid doing too much, and I didn't want to take painkillers.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Like my thoughts were they would just give you like opioids or something.
I can't take opioids, and I was against myself taking them at that point too.
Okay, so it would have been an option if you chose that route.
Yeah.
Wow. So for some people who may get diagnosed with this and they choose that route, hopefully things work out well for them. But that seems also kind of scary. Yeah.
The one thing that they do give you is one medication that kind of sedates you a little bit. It's not so much to help the pain, it's just more to relax you. And that one's something pretty consistent with everybody that I've seen or met or talked to that has this. But other than that, quite a few people actually go without painkillers and just try and do other things as much as possible. There are other methods that they give you to try and avoid painkillers that may be a little more harmful in other ways, but I think it depends on the person too.
Wow. So you also found this group on Facebook.
Yeah.
And was that helpful?
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of research because I hit a point where 10 out of 10 every day of pain was just not going to happen.
So for someone who may not know that, like maybe their scale is different, what is a 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10 is I'm going to chop my leg off. I can't do this anymore kind of pain. Like, I'm going insane. Please stop this. Like,
wow.
And after a while, you don't even cry. I think that's the weirdest part. You're just used to pain. So even now, I have a weird pain threshold where people will tell me that's supposed to hurt. And I'm like, no, but it doesn't. It's so weird. But yeah, 10 out of 10 pain. There are people that get amputated from this illness because they think that that's the best way to do it. But then they get phantom limb syndrome.
Wow.
And they end up struggling with this. And that there are people in the support group that I'm in that have that and that have struggled with amputation. And then it goes to another body part. So the support group's been great, and everybody exchanges the new things, new research, what doctors are saying, and that's how I got connected actually to the doctor in Italy that I went to. That helped me out.
So talk about that. What is this? Who is this doctor?
His name's Andrea Giusti. He's from Genoa, Italy, and he's done research on this for like 20 years, I believe, and he's helped so many patients. He actually did trials. He did trials in Italy, got the research together, gave it to the U.S., but you really want to go see him or go to Italy to get Reginal, which is the medication that he uses. And he's so nice. He's one of the nicest and coolest doctors I've ever met in my life. So he asked me to go through a few different things before I got there. So I had to do a specific bone scan. I had to try a few different treatment options here before I could go there and kind of get approval from my doctors. But there were certain things here that I did. One of them was ketamine. I had to do it once to try and help this, and it didn't work.
Like horse tranquilizer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a scary experience. Would not recommend. But it does help some people that have this, or some people that have depression or anxiety and are really struggling. It helps reduce it. So in theory, I completely understand why they did it, but at the end of the day, it was that or a spinal cord stimulator, which is like a hockey puck that they insert in your spine, and they put a needle through your spinal cord. So when I talked to him, I said, hey, I'm not going to do the spinal cord stimulator. I tried the ketamine that they offered me, and I'm never doing that again either. And I don't want to be on painkillers personally. So what do you think? And after a while, he ended up saying, sure, I'll take you, come to Italy, and we'll give you this infusion of Reginal, and we'll help you out.
Is the infusion only available in Italy?
So the Reginal, I believe, is available in a few countries in Europe, but for the most part, it's mainly in Italy. It's not in the U.S. So the U.S. has a different version called pomidronate, and that's a slightly less intense version of it. They have one doctor I know in Irvine, one in Texas that does it. I don't know what city he's in. And then I believe there's one in Washington too. So there's a few doctors that you can look at that have pomidronate.
And how many times do you have to receive this treatment?
It depends. It's person by person. So for me, after 4 days, the goal was to put me in remission, but we didn't know if that was possible. So remission was one of two things, either reduce or eliminate pain for now. And so the goal was eliminate, but I was okay with just reducing as much as possible. And so when I went into remission, he sat me down and we had a good conversation, and he said, listen, you can come back if it does come back and the pain is too much again, and we can do another session. But if not, just enjoy it as much as you can. So I know someone that's gone back. I think she's gone back twice now. Her name's Mims Gordon. She's the one that actually sent me over his information, and she was so nice. She's the reason that I got to Italy.
Like just sitting across from you, seeing you, hearing you, it all sounds very positive, but I can't imagine the mindset of a person who's experiencing this with the outlook on life and what that must have gone through. Are you willing to share what
of course.
that was like? Because maybe there are people out there who would benefit from hearing what that was like, and it may be resonating from your story, with your story.
Yeah, it was really scary. There were definitely a lot of low moments, but I tried to fight it so much, and I had to give myself days of just being sad and being depressed and allowing myself to feel it and let it pass. But I had to make friends with depression at that point. I had to understand that that was okay to feel. And it was okay to feel anxious. It was okay to feel angry about the fact that I had it and I was fighting it. And pain's interesting because what I've learned from it is that you can be incredibly positive through it and do your best, but you also have to allow yourself to accept that it's happening. And so to not get stuck in it and not get stuck in a mindset where I was scared and thought, this is it for me. I mean, I didn't think I would make it to 30. I had it set in my head, and I think a lot of it was just looking at family members and saying, man, I don't think I could do this to them. I don't want them to think they had any fault in this. And there were real conversations had where it's not anybody's fault if I can't do it. It's just something that I'm battling. And as much as I tried to stay positive, and as much as I tried to also sit with it, I learned a lot about myself in those moments. And a lot of that is, how much can I look at the bad and try and take it as a learning lesson? How much can I find gratitude in that? And it's weird to think, but when you're in those moments, the gratitude of, I didn't fall today. I could put on socks today and be okay. I could go outside, even though it's raining, even though my leg hurts 10 times more right now than normal, which is crazy, I could still function. And so you become really, really grateful for such little things. And I think I held on to that as much as possible. And now looking at it from a different side, looking at it from remission, there's a lot of guilt that comes with remission that a lot of times people don't want to talk about or people don't address, because you still have the gratitude. You still have those moments of, I can walk today. I mean, I'm wearing shoes right now. Like, that's so amazing. Before I was in Crocs for 2 years because I couldn't put any shoes on. And I was so specific about socks and so specific about pants. And now to have those moments, I'm still incredibly grateful. And to not be in a wheelchair anymore, too, just blows my mind every day still. But in that, I also understand that there's guilt in surviving it, and there's guilt in seeing other people that are fighting it still every single day and haven't gotten relief. And it's a bit of why me, but I feel like that is also self-indulgent in some way. So the other part of it is, what can I do to help those people? And what can I do now that I have the mental process, now that I have the space to think outside of pain? How can I make this easier for them, or what can I do? So I think that's been my new mission since I went into remission. Is it's scary, and people often think that they're alone in it. And people often think they're alone in the sadness and in the gratitude and in the happy times and in the doctor's appointments when you're sitting there and you know it's bad news. But I think that you have to hold on to something. And if you can hold on for dear life, then you're going to be okay.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Can you expand on what you mean but when you say you wouldn't make it to 30?
Yeah. It's funny. When I first started feeling the pain, I kind of wondered how long I could just go through it and be okay and still do the things I wanted to do. But your mental health takes such a dip, where it was really dependent on Italy and really dependent on, if I don't get a little relief, I can't. And it became something that suicide is a big part of this illness. It's called the suicide disease. It's another nickname for it. So once you have that thought process, and once you have this is the only way out of it, I really did think, I wouldn't see 30. That was my timeline. And like I said, I had my family in my mind. I have a great partner that's stuck with me through everything. That's just been a great rock for me. And I can't imagine I'm turning 30 next month.
Oh,
so
yeah, congratulations.
I'm really excited. So thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had that timeline in my head where it wasn't a goal necessarily, but I had to be realistic with myself.
I would imagine with a diagnosis like that they know this, and if it's named this as a
Mm-hmm.
disease, they try to surround you with a support network. Did you have that? You mentioned your partner, but your
Mm-hmm.
family, were they aware of this as a possibility? And
Yeah.
oh, wow.
Yeah, they were all aware, and they were really nice about it. I will say my parents, we ended up adopting a system where it was, hey, if I fall, you can laugh. It's okay. Like, I almost needed them to keep the humor up with me, because I needed to feel like you have to just laugh at these situations. You have to find some humor in something, even if it's self-deprecating. It's just it has to be funny. So they were really good about the support, and I had family members that were reaching out. There were a few people, ironically, that were upset that I didn't look more sick. And I think that's very odd when you tell someone that gets diagnosed with an illness, like, you don't look sick. You don't look sad. And I was like, you can't tell what I'm feeling internally just because I'm not crying constantly in front of you or saying, woe is me, or I'm so upset. It doesn't mean I'm not feeling it. It just means that I would rather put on a face and say, I'm here, I'm fighting it. We're just going to pretend it doesn't exist, and let's go and let's do everything that we can do right now.
Yeah.